January, I think. January of 22, I guess. Right? No, 23. I don't know. It was last fall, maybe, but it's been great. And they just come to campus and we try our best to follow up on all the other the grammar work that each group is doing so that we can create some continuity for them.
Awesome. Millicent.
Hi. I've been working as a volunteer with the ECDC, and I have my background in this type of work is I'm a mentor for teenagers, doing video mentorship for teens in South Africa who were with families with HIV/AIDS. I helped a Romanian family resettle. They were in my home for 3 years. I worked with the Listserv group, which is Iraqis, helping Iraqis who would come here, helped with an Afghan prior to being here. I kind of am shifting my focus at the moment and working to help prepare to give training to help the people who are at SIT or the people who are coming through the ECD program to become independent with their transportation, mainly through the bus, but through any way that they can become independent on their own with transportation.
Yay. Again, more rabbit holes I'm avoiding, but thank you because I love it all. Sylvia.
Hi all. I'm in Hanover, and I sort of heard about these organizations through Cher and William, and I sort of ended up volunteering with Behishta and her family, and that's how I knew that Martha was involved. So I'm kind of sidelined, but I'm kind of part of this, hoping to jump in more and help more. And I'm thinking I could work with Helene maybe, but anyway, and wanted to do the training with you.
And Martha, last but not least, I think you're there.
I am here. Sorry to be off camera. And I'm going to have to leave a little bit early too. I'm Martha Teka. I'm with the Cher and also coming into Cher as part of the Upper Valley Neighborhood Support Team, which was founded when the Afghans started arriving in New Hampshire. And Behishta, who was just mentioned, was the first to arrive here, and interestingly actually arrived without being directly affiliated with one of the agencies because she was affiliated with another agency in Michigan when she got here. But we were able to take care of her in parallel with a number of Afghan men who came in. The day the Afghan men arrived was the day the Accentria care work case manager was hired and their health worker. So we all were learning at exactly the same time what the heck was going on here in terms of settling refugees. And so we were all together during that very messy 21 to late 22 time, learning a lot. And I'm here today as part of the team kind of pulling this whole effort together. And my real passion in this whole adventure is connecting the abundance that we have in each one of our communities and in each one of the individual volunteers that's here to do something, making sure that everything is connected with the way that they can be most helpful. And that's complicated space, but the reason that we pulled this together is so we can all learn from one another. And that's really what I'm most interested in. And then as Bill mentioned, we had two surprise, he mentioned, we had two surprise Venezuelan couples arrive in the Upper Valley in the last several days. And that sort of scrambling on the ground to deal right then and there with someone who's really needing something pretty exhausting and exhilarating at the same time. So that's also why I'm here.
Yeah, this is it's a lot of practice and then theory in our experience. I think, we've all kind of like learned the hard way, and then we sort of get together and talk about it and realize like, oh, okay, there's like lessons we can extrapolate from this, or that other people have learned that we wouldn't have made sense to us. We could have read all these things beforehand, and I don't know that it would have helped, that much. You kind of have to slog a bit. So before we just do some like discussion, I'm gonna ask if you were able to do this, Juliet, I already know, you already said you didn't do if you were able to do the online module or most of it or some of it, just for the first part, the sponsorship 101, raise your hand, please. Incredible. That's a pretty good success rate, actually, considering. So what I wanted to do just for a moment is I put into the chat a link. Did I do it? Nope. Okay, I have now put into the chat a link to the Refugee Welcome Community Sponsorship Manual. It's actually better than this online training. I'm just gonna, I encourage folks who like to learn through reading to just check out this manual. I think it's a decent thing. And it's, again, going to be a little bit different from organization to organization, but there are some, when it comes to just like what are co-sponsorship basics, there's a couple of great pages on like what's the group roles, what do co-sponsorship groups do? There's a leader, there's you handle housing, transportation, health, and that's again easy to put on paper and then a little bit different in practice, but there's also a nice kind of sample checklist that I really like, that is something to work from. And I think these are pretty grokkable materials and a good basis for discussion, including like review, to go backwards and say like, is this how it really worked? Is this really the allocation of responsibility? And did we have clear, did one person just do housing, or was everybody kind of doing everything? And I know that different teams have operated differently, and I don't think there's a right answer or wrong answer, but one of the things that I've had a chance to talk with different team leaders about is, just that even just understanding what your functionality is going into it can be really helpful, and not just finding it out, while you're doing it. Knowing who are the more admitted like elites that, like kind of the organizational level versus people who are sort of like, out there kind of in the trenches. That's just good stuff to sort out, or figuring out who's going to specialize. Someone's going to be really good at getting housing. Great. And there's no one right way to do it. Depends on who you have in your group. So that's just pointing you to some resources. I am not assigning homework. What I wanted to do at this point was just kind of do a little bit of I think we could just go round and round, but I like being popcorny. But you have to all bear in mind that I am going to look and see if your hand's up, but also if people just want to like unmute and try to do this almost like we're people in a room, I think we might be able to handle it. I would love to talk for a moment about, what is co-sponsorship and like, what is it not? Yeah. Unmute.
My experience, so I've been in a co-sponsorship group and in a not co-sponsorship group. And really the difference was that the not co-sponsorship group sort of came together organically. It was a bunch of people who knew the family already and wanted to help them. And we just kind of got formalized because a bunch of us made stupid mistakes. And then we realized we sort of needed to be, under the watchful eye of ECDC, just so we weren't working at cross purposes. And that group came together nicely. The co-sponsorship group, which was more formally organized, was specifically organized around a French-speaking family, and we were all sort of asked to be part of it because we all spoke French. But that was a group where we had to raise money, and we had, specific roles there were a certain number of people, and we had specific roles. And I got to say, it's not like one group worked a lot better than the other. The family itself, the two different families were so different that the experiences were going to be different anyway. So I would say, though, it's a little bit helpful to have the framework where you kind of know at least what you're supposed to be doing, even if you don't end up doing it. And the co-sponsorship framework was, I guess, helpful. And I'm still part of that group that is a formal co-sponsorship group.
Great. Thank you. I love the compare and contrast. And also this is a good time for people who haven't done co-sponsorship to also ask even more nuts and bolts questions. I mean, this is, because I don't just mean that philosophically, like what is co-sponsorship? And I also I want to encourage you to talk about what's hard about it. What are the limits that you run up against, and and that can be what inspired us to have this summer gathering in some ways was like, we need to have more conversations about how to land the plane, like how to have boundaries and how to agree upon those boundaries and blah, blah, blah. So, what are some of the things that are inherent to co-sponsorship structurally, because it's this very formalized commitment, but also that maybe paradoxically make it really hard.
This is Martha. Can I jump in here for a sec? Because is that okay?
Of course, yeah.
Sure. So I want to sort of think a little bit just definitionally for folks who are here and who may don't know exactly what we're talking about. We say co-sponsorship, but this the idea of co-sponsorship is that for the first time, refugee organizations agreed to or found the need to pair with community-based organizations. So together, the refugee organization that was used to handling kind of the whole thing partnered with community-based organizations who took some responsibility. That was sort of the name of co-sponsorship. As I mentioned, the way we experience, quote, co-sponsorship, we did get a guidebook from them, from the Refugee Association, or from the settlement agency.
Hello, everyone. I am waiting for Chris Paquette to jump on the line here.
Go ahead, Martha. You're good.
Okay, sorry. So, what I think I actually experienced was more like all-in community sponsorship, community sponsorship, which is the whole community came together in order to meet the needs of the folks who came here, and we used the settlement agency as a resource. And what from that time, I've also learned a lot more about SHARE, that came up primarily sponsoring, primarily, as Bill mentioned, working with asylum seekers. And when you decide you're going to take on an asylum seeker as a community, you are all in. You're taking care of all of the things from the beginning. So I find it really hard to kind of tease apart the co-sponsorship versus community sponsorship. And honestly, the financial difference in terms of what you get when you're a co-sponsorship versus what you need when you're really settling someone hasn't been that big a differentiator either. So I really like this organization, this course, having all of these folks in the room that have had the full range of experiences. Feel like it's super helpful to be learning from one another in the different structures.
Yeah, and Alix is raising her hand because I was hoping Alix would jump in, because I think you have that kind of longitudinal experience of
Yeah, and I wanted to I guess talk a little bit about co-sponsorship versus sponsorship, sort of, what you were talking about, Martha, the sort of old model where an agency took care of everything. And so however many people come, they all kind of get the same services because they're all going to the same bureaucracy to get those services. And what co-sponsorship offers is a more one-to-one relationship between community members, but it also means that every refugee has a different experience depending on the skills and interests and personalities of who their co-sponsor is. And in a system like we have in Brattleboro, where some people don't even have support groups or co-sponsors at all, it means that not only is it different, but it's inequitable. And so that's something that I think everybody at every level struggles with every day, because every time I do something nice for, quote unquote, my family, I think, gee, all these other families, they don't even have anybody to do this for them, but then someone else has. Yeah, and also just based on personalities, based on how you hit it off, the relationship can be warmer or cooler. And so it's not something that you can, prescribe a solution to, but it's definitely a feature of this more individual model of sponsorship.
Right. Right. Millicent Cooley, that was wonderful, Alix. Thank you. That was really great. Although I'm not a co-sponsor, the closest thing that I experienced that I've had to that is when I helped a Romanian family who they won their green card lottery, and they were my aunt. I knew them. My aunt knew them through the Peace Corps, her Peace Corps experience, and so I knew them before they came here. So that was a big leg up to just know who these people are and know that they're trustworthy people. I had no organization around me, but I want to say, Jan asked about challenges, and I want to talk about it was essentially successful for me because they have a good life now, and that's really the goal. But I would say one thing that was a problem, they were in my home, and what I've heard or read in the training literature about power differentials, power differences, big problem. For me, in that case, they were in my home. I do things a certain way in my home. I would I don't know if I would have somebody in my home again because of that. I would co-sponsor, but I mean, I'm just saying that's a real problem, and it has so having more power than the other people is a potential problem, and it was in my case. Yeah, so that's it.
That's great. I want to keep going with, not just what's hard about it, but also continue with what you were doing, Alix, with the compare and contrast between what happens with people who may or, who have a co-sponsor family or who don't, or group rather, or, and I kind of want to bring us back around to with all the reasons why it's complicated and hard and can generate a different kind of, there's always inequity built into this stuff, right? It's, even if it's a standardized bureaucracy, there's inequity, but why do co-sponsorship rather than just have it be done through a standard field office agency and the bureaucracy? What's the, aside from that it's gratifying?
Is there a standard bureaucracy option?
There is. Most resettlement actually is done without co-sponsors. The organizations may have volunteers, but it's not the default by any means.
I didn't know that. Maybe I would have gone the other way.
Well, in many ways, that is the baseline, as Alix pointed out, some families don't have co-sponsors. There's a certain number of co-sponsor groups, and then there's,
right.
There's certainly volunteers that I think most resettlement, they're all different, there's 9 agencies, and they have field offices and affiliates around the country. And some of them have highly developed volunteer networks and systems, and some of them it's absolutely professionalized and outsourced, right? Your employment means you get sent to the Department of Labor in Milwaukee, and for housing, you get sent to the Housing Authority, and the case managers just handle the stuff that is just refugee case management. And it's very much social worker case manager driven. And so, so I think, I mean, selfishly, like looking at it from this, when we thought about bringing refugee resettlement to Southern Vermont, we knew that the biggest asset that we had to leverage, aside from just having like jobs and needing people, was the community members. And that, was sort of, we didn't take for granted that it was going to be easy, but we saw it as an intrinsic part of why this would work. But that is not a given around the country.
Yeah. I could jump in on this a bit. So I guess what the co-sponsor or community sponsorship model offers, I think everybody thinks that it offers a better connection. It's better at connecting the newcomer to the community and building stronger community connections. And I think I've seen this play out just recently. We had a large Afghan family come here this past summer, and we were working, it was a 10-person family that kind of fell into two pieces. And we were working with both of these groups, and for various reasons, mostly the desire for a more urban environment that had more employment options. Eventually, both pieces of this large extended family moved to Burlington, Vermont. Now, what was one of the challenges was, and what made their decision difficult, was that they recognized that they were giving up something that they weren't likely to get in Burlington. And even with a very professional refugee agency in Burlington, they just don't have the time to do what we did with them, which, we were working very closely with them, with getting them set up with English language learning. We worked on getting their benefits, etc. So we were always available, always responsive, and that's not what they're experiencing in Burlington right now. So, I mean, there are pluses and minuses to all this, but it is, I think, the difference that a community organization can make is really working closely and building connections across the community with, to the family.
My Afghan family who moved to Sacramento had the same experience moving from Brattleboro, Vermont to Sacramento, California. They've lost all the support. My family is the cousins of, or the brother of and sister, whatever, of Alexa's family. And they moved to Sacramento too.
Yeah, and they're missed, right? We're a small community, right? Like we kind of, I mean, I drove something back and forth to Lactalis Dairy many, late night. So like it's, this is, yeah, I mean, we're a rural community, and those kinds of personal connections like matter. Like we pay attention to people, and they feel that. And I want to say, just as like a bureaucrat sort of from the sort of outside, another thing about co-sponsors being that engaged, not having sort of a siloed relationship. I mean, that each of the individual things that volunteers do is really important, whether it's medical driving or clothing, whatever, but co-sponsors have a view on the whole family. And that is something that only a case manager typically has. And so that perspective it's really different to have that many people who have that much understanding of the whole system, and are advocating in a way with that knowledge, and having expectations. Like one of the things that makes it hard operating in the system is that the expectations are very, very high, because volunteers are so involved, and they're like, why doesn't this person have a better job? Why don't they have their driver's license yet? But that's why it's so good. It's like that is, and that I think that co-sponsorship weaves together the sort of the whole family system, in a way with the volunteer group, that I don't think there's any kind of analog for that with other volunteer approaches. So
I think one advantage that we have in Vermont, perhaps other than Burlington, but certainly all of our other smaller towns and cities, is that even the bureaucratic offices, be it BDCC or ECDC or SEVCA or whoever, they're not that big either. And they do the people who work in those offices remember the people they work with. And so as long as they don't have too high of a turnover, there is some personal connection there too.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what I think if you look forward 5 years, what I hope volunteers, I mean, part of bringing folks together is to try to keep transferring knowledge and create some institutional and shared knowledge and culture. But yeah, we all entered this kind of at the same time. And so there hasn't, we've all become kind of quasi experts, but not quite experts together. A lot of us, you know, there's some newcomers, but that will change over time. Hopefully there'll be better, you know, easier onboarding for new people. This is the point in the agenda where I like to throw out the agenda where I had originally pictured going into small breakout discussions, but last week when we did this, we didn't. We just stayed in the bigger group to kind of turn it to a little bit more of just the kind of personal for the kind of next 20 minutes. And really, if folks want to go into breakouts, we can make it into smaller groups. But if we want to keep it all together, I think we're doing okay. Great. Okay. So I would love for folks to just get away from the kind of co-sponsorship thing and just sort of talk about, like, you know, a lot of you talked about what your background is in this or whatever, but I would like you to go a little bit more into that, talk about like why you're doing this work and what you've learned, like what you personally have learned about yourself and about you know, working to welcome people into our community. And I'm going to go around and make everyone say a thing. So I'm gonna start by picking on Cheryl.
So, well, I don't have a lot of experience doing it. So this will be quick. I think you know, I think like everybody, I can't pay attention to what's going on in the world without feeling like the need to participate. As Mr. Rogers would say, look for the helpers. So I'm looking to be a helper. When bad things happen, find the helpers. So that's oversimplifying it. I mean, I feel very strongly that when we so I feel like our immigration system needs a lot of work. I feel like when we bring people into this country, we can't just check a box. I think we need to absolutely integrate and support and not just on their side, but on the community side. I think people, I would like to participate in bringing everybody together on that, not just bringing a refugee or an asylum seeker into the community, but having the community be aware and accept as well. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of a two-sided thing that I feel like I'd like to understand more about how I could participate in affecting that positive change and really helping people who are displaced. It's unimaginable. And I have friends who I've worked with and you know, who I became lifelong friends with, who came to this country not speaking the language, from Iran and from other countries, who just had to figure it out, and their stories are pretty amazing.
Thank you. Helene.
So trying to be coherent at whatever time it is on whatever night this is. So I'm a second generation American who was privileged enough to watch two very different paths on my mom's and my dad's side. And I've always been intrigued by, I mean, I'm really in the bottom of my soul a coach who happens to be an educator. That's being an educator. And when Martha came, when I met Martha, super socially, actually, we were all out with a bunch of people and we just happened to connect. I realized that my coaching skills, as well as my teaching skills, and the ability to use a specific language approach would really meld well with the desire to help people find community the way my grandparents did. And so it's super simple and super emotional, and I'm super grateful that I have the skill set for these pretty awesome people. And the one thing that's been so overwhelming about this whole experience is that we see them once a week, and it's really not about us. It's about watching the community they form together. So yeah, I have a skill set. I can make people laugh, but what is really happening is Afghan soldiers are talking to Ukrainian moms about the horrors of war in some form of English, and it's truly incredible to watch. So and be part of it. I'm just honored. So I rambled. I'm sorry. I'm shutting up now.
That's what this is for. Millicent.
Yeah, so Jen, you made a point earlier that I completely relate to, which is that I've been slogging around with this for a while. I've been doing stuff like around this. I've never been a co-sponsor, but I'm at this point where I feel like I don't really know where I fit in. And I don't, and I see people who have different skills, and some of them, like you're like the woman who just spoke, you're a coach. I'm not, that's not my skill. So I mean, I think that doing this is important for, this kind of work is important for so many reasons, which that would be a whole other discussion. But for myself, I feel like, all right, I want to I want to kind of take stock and like just listen a lot and like figure out, like where do I really want to fit in? I have some skills I'm trying to figure out now at this moment in the project I'm doing. I think I have something to contribute there, but I don't have a direction, because I just need more understanding of what this takes and how I can fit in really, and how I want to, what kind of organization I want to be part of, et cetera, and why. So that's kind of.
And we're flying the plane while we're building it, so let's just all be honest. So all right, Charlene.
Yeah, well, I'll try to be coherent, but I kind of want to echo what Millicent said about trying to figure out how to fit in. When I retired, I decided that I would get certified as an English teacher, partly because of some experiences traveling in other countries and just seeing how important learning English is for people who want to advance in those countries. And so through circumstances, got connected with the Afghan men, and I've kind of witnessed and been part of trying to figure out how to connect and help these men with learning English, given that they're working all the time, have health problems, suffering from being away from their families. And, in the process have met wonderful people and just trying to figure out how I fit in at this point with trying to support our new neighbors.
Thank you. William.
Well, I'm going to echo what some others have said. But for me as an organizer of the group, what has been really hard is fitting volunteers to the various work that needs to be done. And doing that as a volunteer. And that has just been incredibly hard work to make that happen. The other thing I've learned is what a difficult path they have. And Charlene just articulated that with these Afghan former soldiers who, we work with them, but, they have a really hard future ahead of themselves. And they're still in sort of, immigration limbo right now. None of them have permanent status here in the United States. And then there's a third thing that's sort of always at the back of my mind is helping or working with the newcomers to plan their future or to create a future here. We've had real struggles in just connecting with families in a way that it both empowers them and helps them see a future, maybe a new future. This is really hard to articulate, but I have to say, in many of the families we have worked with, we've had real difficulties creating that sort of pathway into their new life. And we're not there to create it. I know that, but we're there to help them create their pathway. And that's just been really hard because of culture, language, and the state of various states of trauma that they're in. And it's something that we need to get really better at.
Absolutely. Thank you. Kate, I think we lost you for a moment there. I don't know if you saw the prompt.
Sorry, I had to drop out because there's another meeting that's starting at 7, and I didn't know they weren't coming on and they weren't coming on. So I went into this. Then they came on, but the speaker was not able to contact, so I came back.
Okay. Well, we're going around and just talking just from like a personal place for a moment about like why do you do this work, and what have you learned, or what do you get from this work?
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, it's easy for me to say why I got involved. I had retired and I wanted to give something back to others. And when I went to St. Thomas in January, there was this notice in the bulletin that that afternoon at the Congregational Church, there was going to be a meeting for people interested in supporting asylees. And so I went to that, and that's how I got involved in SHARE. Now, since I have been working with people directly in SHARE, I'm not sure that I would have done this if I had known quite how complicated it was going to get. But, but now I'm here. What I enjoy is teaching people. I mean, I have a little bit of the teacher in me. I hate grading papers, but I have taught, so I'm kind of trying to use that. But what I can't do is teach them English, unfortunately. And so I'm just working with what I can do to try to help. The particular woman I'm working with has all kinds of health issues, including mental health issues. And it's sort of been eye-opening how important that latter has become in the overall picture. But that's pretty much what I'm there for.
Great, thank you. And Alix?
So I'm going to do a little bit what my kids hate when I do it, which is go back to the very beginning. When I was in high school, I went to a talk by Chris Dodd, who was our senator in Connecticut, and he talked about his Peace Corps experience and described it as the best thing he ever did in his life. And I had grown up in a bilingual family and was already interested in cross-cultural stuff, and so that really lit up for me. And so I did serve in the Peace Corps in Niger, and I think I summarized my what I was trying to do there was help people and have an adventure. And that's still sort of fundamentally why I'm doing this. And in terms of the actual tasks that I'm doing, I kind of backed into it because my daughter started volunteering for Carry Me Home, and then she was 11, so she needed me to help. And then the person who was the director left, and so I ended up kind of holding the bag. But it's also because I'm pretty flexible and adaptable, and I don't mind what task I'm doing. I definitely gravitate towards the sort of hands-on practical things and sort of develop relationships through having something to do. And maybe that's because I'm a shy person and it's easier if there's something to talk about. And I think what I'm trying to do to help people is just addressing that everyone really wants and deserves to be seen. And so that's what I'm trying to do, you know, through whatever kind of work I'm doing, is make sure that people know that they're important and that they matter and that somebody cares who they are. And I've learned so much. I can't say everything that I've learned, but yeah, I think that, you know, everybody's different, both your coworkers and the people that you're trying to help. And I just, you know, you just keep on having to respect and celebrate that everybody approaches what they have to do in life differently, and try to be there for them when they need you, and let them do their thing when that's what they need to do.
Thank you. And Juliet, you are last but not least.
Okay. Well, I loved hearing what Alix had to say. I'm going to be super selfish and say, I'm just doing it for fun because it's super fun. Hanging out with Alix a couple times a week doing Carry Me Home is just always a great time. Like I said, I grew up in New York City with people from all over the world. Like, you know, like that was just normal for me. So coming to Southern Vermont, which was so white and old, felt kind of weird. So when I had the opportunity to work with the refugees, I was like, this feels more normal to me than my regular life in Vermont, actually dealing with people from all over the world, trying to figure out what everyone's saying. I too came from a family where, you know, my grandfather came to America and kind of never really learned to speak English, but that was okay. And my dad came here in the late 50s. And so, you know, I guess I'm helping people, but they're also helping me because, you know, we're all kind of in this together. And prior to working with the refugees, I ran a homeschooling community group for like almost 20 years. And, you know, you talk about herding cats, a bunch of homeschoolers are a really difficult bunch. So I thought the refugees can't be worse than those guys. And they're not. It's just, you know, more people all doing things their own way, all kind of having a different opinion about the world. And I love that. I love the diversity of opinion, and I love that whole thing someone else was talking about where you're in a room like at Carry Me Home, and there's the people from Rwanda, and there's the people from Eritrea, and then there's some Afghans, and then, you know, and we're all in there together, and everyone's kind of trying to figure out what size the sneakers are. And I also used to be a fashion designer, and I feel like clothing is this, you know, not nobody, I mean, I'm willing to talk about it, but most people are a little bit shy to admit they have a style, but they do. Everyone's got their own style. And I love meeting the refugees and getting to know every person and being like, oh, she's really into green. We're going to pull a lot of green stuff for her. Or, you know, this guy is a super stylish guy. He may be a refugee, but I can tell he's a fashion dude. And, you know, we just have a lot of fun with everybody, helping them kind of be the person who they already are, you know. And that's why I think Carry Me Home is, you know, it's not just clothes. It's like people get to
That's
be the
fabulous.
person that they're going to be.
That's really terrific.
So yeah, it's fun to just be getting to know the refugees through their style, which they, you know, a lot of them are super stylish, which this community really needs too, by the way.
So can I just say something? I really have enjoyed listening to everybody. I kind of wish I had gone last now, but it's been really fun to get to know you all. And I thought early on, I did hear, Millicent and also Charlene say, we're trying to figure out where to fit in. And I think that's exactly where I am as well. And as we get to know each other more, I really look forward to, figuring out where I could plug in and be the most helpful. And so I would just like to share a little bit of my background, because I'm retired, but I come from the health sciences business, which is highly regulated to the point of paralysis. And I've worked in really large corporations and in more nimble startups. And I think one of my career skill sets is being relentless in terms of problem solving and navigating really complex areas. And I think, Kate, you mentioned that you're navigating the healthcare system right now. I don't know which system it is, but I may be able to help. I mean, it can be really hard to figure out how to advocate and navigate. This is all new territory for me, so I don't know if that's transferable, but I'm like a dog with a bone sometimes, to get things done. So anyway, keep me in mind if you think something is, a good fit. I'm really looking forward to learning a lot from everyone here too.
Thank you. And I want to be mindful of everyone's time because it is a little late, and I got to go do some high schoolers at 7 a.m. and Jack too. So, but I want to say, like, this is awesome, and we will never have enough time for this. And I'm sorry about that. But I, as the taskmaster, am going to ask. Oh yeah.
Before you taskmaster,
yes.
Can you please allow time to share with us about yourself?
Oh, yeah, sure. I do this work because I am the person in my organization, and generally wherever I've worked, where someone can say, there's this kind of weird, kind of not normal thing that we think could happen, but we're not sure how. Could you work on that? And so that's how I ended up working on trying to find pathways to immigration for Southern Vermont. And for me, it's just sort of, because it's an uncharted territory, because it's a messy space that doesn't have patterns or pathways or processes yet, that is my comfort zone, weirdly. And so that has nothing to do with the actual thing of bringing people here. a lot of what all of you have said I resonate with. I grew up in a more diverse place. I will be happier when these communities, our communities, look more like the rest of America. I have my own, my grandparents only spoke Norwegian at home. My, mother's father read an encyclopedia because, there was no college. There was just an immigrant family selling turkeys in Detroit. You know what I mean? It's very personal. It's very real. And it's also, a way to get a handle on this crazy planet, and do a thing. So it's great. And I'm so blessed to be able to connect with all of you, because most of my day is spent in bureaucracy and I don't get to actually feel like a part of the community-based work very often. So this is just icing on the cake for me. So thanks for calling me out. So tasks.
Wait, what about Jack?
Oh yeah, Jack. I keep being like, you should go home, and he's still he's too good.
Hi all. So kind of to echo Jen's point, I'm just kind of here to help facilitate all the, and execute the tasks that Jen's talking about. And obviously, my grandparents came from Austria, and so definitely the immigration, all the personal immigration stories you know, hit home for me as well. So definitely happy to just, you know, be helpers, as I think Cheryl said in the beginning. So yeah.
Also, whenever people say in a snotty way to me, like, why are we welcoming new people? Why don't we try and keep the people we have? I'm like, well, Jack. Because Jack grew up here. And like, so, you know, I'm going for that. We try all of it. And I do get that all the time from people. But
Well, that's more positive than pointing at the cemetery, which would be another reply.
yeah, our death rates are still exceeding our birth rates, so that sole approach is not going to work for sure. All right, I'm going to share my screen for a second, and I'm going to say, I hope that you can get into the module next week, this week, whenever. And Sponsorship 101 is really not that rich. We've talked about it. It's really basic stuff. Key Mindsets is a little bit more provocative about kind of, you know, the collaborative mindsets and like struggling. And so I hope that if you have trouble doing this, let me or Jack help you with the technology. I hope that you can do this. You can breeze through this in an hour. I'm going to be honest. It really, I mean, it's good to do it slower. You'll get more out of it, but you can breeze through this online module pretty quickly. And we are going to, I'm going to
post the link again here, please.
Yeah. Yep. Totally. It's Jack, do you want to post the, it's kind of, there's sort of this thing of you have to sign up for it first. And so to do that, you have to, Jack, will you post the right links? Because I'm going to confuse people. Thank you. He's going to do that. And they're all on the instructions are here, and I will put this link in here, which is, so the idea is for us to have kind of some of this content to talk about. And I have a time scheduled next week. I think we'll do the same thing, which is to have 2 different times for webinar. We had planned to have people meet like in person in your own co-sponsorship groups or in sub-regions. And I just think most people are too busy to really do it that way. So I think we're going to do the next round of discussion kind of like this, and then take it from there. And I'm, as I kind of said at the top of the hour, we're coming from 2 very different directions. St. Michael's folks like really want us to go like much slower and blah, blah, blah. And Martha was like, we got to do this really fast. People really want this now. So we're trying to sort of split the difference. And I'm sorry for not being super clear up front about the scheduling, but you will get an email from Jack that has a couple of different webinar times to continue this discussion. And then I'd like, yes, that's it. We'll ask you for a little feedback about, you know, what else would be helpful, but that's it. All right, Jack put the link in there for the sign up for the content, and please do not be shy about asking for help. It is a little bit annoying, but once you get going, it works mostly.
Thank you so
All right,
much. This has been great.
Thank you.
Really been great.
You guys are just incredible. And someday we'll build to big conversations about things like social capital and how to help people see their future because they're part of a community that's working towards that together, right? That's we're not there today, but that's what we're going to build towards over the years. So, all right. Thank you so much for giving so much of your evening to this and your life, and see you soon.
Thank you. Nice to meet you all.